Thank you, everyone, for inviting me to present at the 2022 Generic Drug Science and Research Initiatives Public Workshop. The goal of my presentation is to provide an example of the gap in the published literature related to the device constituent parts. So why is the published literature so important? Basically, it's used throughout the product development. We use it during feasibility. We use the literature to help provide an in-depth understanding of user groups and use environments. An example would be understanding if teens would be more compliant with the medication regimen if the combination product was discrete and could be carried easily in a backpack. We also use it for risk management activities to identify potential risks. We use published data to show predicate devices or similar devices and what use errors that they endure, and then how can we mitigate those through our product. And we also use it to help support design requirements with clinical and end user context. Here we demonstrate the linkage design controls between the device design controls and the drug design controls. So after a target drug has been identified by the business unit, then a cross-functional team helps determine the feasibility of the project. So do we have an in-house device that we already utilize for similar combination products, or do we need to explore platform devices? These are single platforms that can be used across various user groups and disease states. An example could be a pen injector where the manufacturer of the pen develops the device but does not develop the drug. They may sell the device to multiple drug manufacturers. So human factors assessment goes on to say, well, how close to the reference list drug would the new concept be? So we compare the external critical design attributes and evaluate the differences. So this helps the engineering and manufacturing team determine suitable design options to consider. For example, taking into consideration of the indication for use and the end users, the patient population, we may find one size doesn't fit all. Based on the human factors assessment, we determine if the design changes to the platform devices are even possible. If so, what would the manufacturing impact of the design changes be? Does it require new equipment? So after we finalize on the desired device, we communicate to the business unit the cost, the expected development timelines, and if there are any early risks to the project schedule. So if it's approved, we move into the device development using design controls. This all can take several months to a year before we get to the NPA and to kick off the design control process. A PubMed search was performed with these keywords in different combinations. For this presentation, the literature search was focused on pen injectors and auto-injectors as they are well-established combination product in the market. So what was the inclusion criteria? First, I wanted to use the journal articles that related to the usability of the device. For example, if the study showed that it was multiple studies evaluating the safety and efficacy of the drug, and the usability of the device was not the focus of the publication, it was not included. The other inclusion criteria consist of less than 10 years, English, and US-based studies. So I recognize studies performed outside the United States can add significant value, but for this example of literature search, it's difficult to establish if the product was marketed in the US. So terms like pen injector, usability, and pen injector, because the list was so high. And the same thing with auto injectors. You can see that we had over 900 results for that. So we lowered it down to auto injector and human factors, summative testing, and injection pen, auto injector and usability. So you see how many results with a total results of 1,184. By the time we finished with the inclusion criteria, the total publications that met the inclusion criteria were actually 44. I categorized the 44 publications into 4 groups. The real-world use, this would be the phase 3 clinical trials, the human factors engineering testing, post-market human factor studies, and engineering lab testing. In the real-world use, the majority of the publications reported subjective data. This would be the satisfaction levels, the ease of use, the confidence levels regarding self-injections. These types of studies provide a lot of value for the originator during the development of the new product, where the data from the preclinical human factors work and the real-world usability are combined to demonstrate the overall safety profile of the product. However, during the development of the generic combination product, these types of studies generally don't have enough objective data for us to use. For example, in a phase 3, multi-center, global, randomized, open-label, 12-week study in patients with active, moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis, Kivitz et al. Assessed the robustness and usability of an autoinjector pen. Patients were randomized to administer medications via the autoinjector or the syringe, and they recorded evaluations of their experience using the pen after each injection in home diaries and were required to complete a 2-part questionnaire to evaluate the patient's perception and satisfaction. If there was a negative response, it was recorded as product technical complaint, and the device and diary was sent to the manufacturer for evaluation. After the 12-week assessment phase, when asked about their overall level of satisfaction, 98% of patients reported they were satisfied or very satisfied with the pen. Most patients indicated that the pen was easy or very easy to use, and 98% thought the injection time was either normal, short, or very short, and 91% thought that they were very confident to extremely confident about using the same pen for their injection in the future. As you can see, this would be very difficult to translate this data into a generic pen where we will be following the RLD. So the human factors engineering test, these publications were synthesized data, objective data, where they reviewed the task analysis, the use errors, the use difficulties, close calls, and root cause analysis. In the post-market human factors studies, these are the studies that are comparing the same drug but different device. They also may be post hoc analysis for new indication for use, and they provide objective and subjective data, such as ease of use and patient preference. They're not always powered to demonstrate superiority. As an example, Moss et al. Conducted a human factors study with untrained adolescents comparing a recently approved single-dose epinephrine prefilled syringe with an approved autoinjector. This type of study would be very useful to evaluate the task analysis, identify any new use errors that we need to understand for our products and our patient populations, and can potentially leverage the use errors rates to future comparative human factors studies. And finally, the human factors engineering lab testing. And this is where the data provides laboratory testing that can be used to support design requirements. And this could be measurements of applied forces. For example, if you had a plate on your lap and you needed to demonstrate the insertion force of the needle and how long that insertion force can be maintained while they are holding the injection in place for, let's say, 20 seconds. So those are the kind of data that we use for helping with the clinical justification and the usability justification for the design requirements. An example of how the literature is utilized to support the development of generic combination products, and there are gaps that no matter the types of devices. I would like to propose that the FDA works in collaboration with professional organizations that focus on patient safety and usability of combination products such as ISMP, National Patient Safety Foundation, to conduct meta-analyses of the published literature and conduct human factor studies and publish the results so that the data can be applied consistently across manufacturers and establish appropriate design requirements. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention today.